I got broads in Atlanta, just to the lean the family, credit cards and the scammers, getting the licks in the band, legacies.
What's up YouTube, it's Gavin coming back at you with another tips, tricks, and tuning tutorial video on CarX Drift Racing Online. Today, the long wait is over. I'm finally going to show you how to tune like a pro player in this game. This will work for comp tunes, for street style tunes, for anything you want to tune. I'm just going to explain how everything works. I'm going to tune a car with you guys today. It's going to take a little while, so it'll be a little long-winded video. If that's not what you're here for, I'm sorry. If you want to know how to tune cars on your own and you're struggling with it, especially with new updates and things like that that have changed people's tunes, they can't figure out why they're not working. This game is becoming more realistic as far as the physics go, so kind of need to have a more realistic style tune for it to work. Also, most tunes that are good tunes will work on 90s, 100s, 110s, and 120s, all the same almost. It's just a matter of how you use your fingers on the triggers and stuff like that. So you've got a car that will work on 100s but just absolutely will not work on something else, it's probably because it's wrong. No offense. I know a lot of you don't know as much as some of us about cars and how things work, or what each of these things in the dyno stand really does. I've had lots of requests for this video, and so I'm going to go ahead and do it. So we'll get right into it. Tune a car together, and I will tell you what these things do and why I'm doing it. In mind that these are all going to be bass tunes, just like my YouTube video. All the tunes that you guys like so much are bass tunes. I do tweak them a little bit to my liking, but you know, you can do what you want with it. If you are happy with the bass tune, which every one of these bass tunes will drift, I guarantee if you follow these steps you will have a car that will drift pretty much with ease. So let's hop right in. Alright. Today we're going to work on the Hunter, because it's one of the only cars that I have not done yet. Give the BMWs a little love today. You're welcome, mailman. Okay. First thing that you're going to need to do, obviously, as always, put on the Ultimate kit. I'm going to do this comp style. Street style is really the only difference is it's your choice. You can put whatever width tires and however big of rims you want. But today we're going to do a comp style tune on this Hunter. You put on the Ultimate. You'll go find a body kit that you like. We're gonna go with this one. Pick two. And you'll put your bumper on whatever you want. All this stuff, none of this stuff matters. None of it. I am to slide over and do a couple of things. Well, really just one thing. That is wheels. I don't like those. So, go with... go with those. And this car, weighs 1450, which is going to qualify it for a 305 on comp tunes on a 19-inch rim. Just real quick, because I don't want to look at it. What? All right. Now that we have a car that is at least decent looking, we will hop right in here. We're gonna go over to the dyno stand, and I'm gonna show you how things work. So, like I said, this car is 1,450 kilos, so it does qualify for a 305 tire on a 19-inch rim. So we got our 305 here. Inch rim here, 30% profile here. All that is good for now. We don't have to change anything else in here right now. Okay, so your springs. Front spring length. Springs are how high or low the car is going to sit. Okay. Spring length. All that control. Spring stiffness. That is how much stiffness your spring has in it, and how much it takes to compress the spring itself down in its travel. Okay, and then you got your dampers. I'll get into those in a minute. So we're gonna start. I like to start my stiffness somewhere around 50, 60. Go anywhere between 30 and 100-ish. I would not go over 100, because if you're over 100, chances are it's wrong. As stated in other tuning videos that you may have seen, all of these cars in real life, they're running, most of these cars in real life are running soft suspension. The car is super soft, the weight transfers over, the car rolls into it, and hooks and bites when it's supposed to. Stiff, it's like glass, it just wants to just keep sliding. Sorry, so on the stiffness, try not to go over 100. If you're way up here, it's wrong. Guaranteed, it's wrong. So I like to start all of mine somewhere around 40, 50, 60. That's my preferred range for cars. And on here, go with a 50 in the front and a 40 rear. Then got your stiffness set up how we want it. Starting this a little lower on the rear, that's kind of my preference. You can do it 40-40, 50-50. Actually yeah, we'll do it like that. So 50 in the front, 40 in the rear. At this point, and take your springs, adjust them a little bit, get them up off the tire. Actually, let's just do this. I'm gonna make this simple. That way we don't have to do a bunch of math in the video, okay? I'm gonna start them at 40-40. You can do whatever you want. 50-60, 60-40. Make sure if you do it that way and you change them around, you kind of want the front to be a little higher than the rear. But do it however you want. On this stiffness, I take the number that I have and I add 10. You can add 5, you can add 15, you can add 8, whatever, but you are going to take this number, you're going to add for here 10, right? So 40 plus 10 is 50, and that is how you're going to get these numbers. We'll talk about that later, but for now we'll move over to the dampers. We're going to leave these at 40. Your dampers, let's talk about what they do. Go through the rest of them and talk about what they do. On your dampers, fast bump front and rear. The dampening of the shock is once that spring gives out and suspension starts to squish, it will dampen itself before it bottoms out. So it could be moving super fast and then it'll slow down at the bottom of its travel and dampen that shock. And so fast bump is when you're going fast over chattery things, rough surfaces, lots of bumps. That's fast. That means it's traveling fast, not how fast your car is going. Don't ever listen to anyone that tells you that that is for going fast. It has nothing to do with going fast. It has to do with hitting certain things fast. Is it one bump, which would be front damper bump, or is it a bunch of bumps in a sequence, which would be fast bump because it's traveling fast? Okay, that damper just dampens how fast that spring compresses and whether it bottoms out easy or not, or if it's super rock solid and just doesn't move because it's way too stiff. On the other side of that, the rebound. Once it goes down and compresses, you've got your compression and it's all the way down and the dampening is maxed, you've got a rebound. Rebound is how fast the shock comes back to its full length. On your rebound, you want your rebounds numbers to be a little higher, but on this one they're going to be pretty close to the same because I'm doing this, it's going to end up a 50-50 build because we're starting at 40, adding 10, but you'll see what I'm talking about with the numbers. So as an example, because cars are harder to see it on, for those of you that know dirt bikes, motorcycles, the dirt world, okay? If you were on a dirt bike and you went through a set of whoops, a bunch of jumps in a pack like this, and you had to hit boom, 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 boom through all of those jumps, and most people will lift up and tap the back wheel off of them or clear a couple of them at a time with the front wheel. On your rebound, if your rebound is not enough, then you're going to bottom out. On a dirt bike, you'll bottom out, and on a pack of whoops, probably crash because that suspension going in at the first jump, and if you don't have enough rebound before the second one, it can't kick back out and give you that full travel for each jump. So it will go in, it'll collapse, you'll hit the next one bottomed out already, and then chances are when you hit that one, it's going to fling you off the bike. Okay. Rebound, how fast the shock comes back to its natural position. Fast rebound does how fast it does it over chattery stuff, and regular damper is just slow stuff. Coming out of corners, off throttle, things like that are going to be your regular rebound. So that is how damper bump and damper rebound work. So if you want to tune these differently, now you know how to adjust those accordingly. You're going to want your rebound to be a little bit higher than your bump because you want it to come back quicker. Okay. Your toe is pretty easy to explain here. So if you have lots of positive toe, it's going to turn the wheels inward, as you can see. Negative toe, it's going to turn the wheels outward. Front wheel moving. Okay, so standard is going to go straight forward. Your negative is going to be outward. Inward. Some people run this all the way inward. I do not. It does allow the car to move faster and roll freer because inward is not trying to pull you one way or the other. However, when turning into corners, getting the car to flip sideways, things like that with ease, it's not going to happen over here. Bring it out over here, the steering is more twitchy, but it will turn into corners easier, and it will move quicker and respond quicker when you throw the car around. I start mine always at a negative 0.20 on the toe. Just enough where it gets a little bite to toss the rear end, but not enough that it slows the car down because the tires are like this and it's scrubbing down the street. They're still pointed out, you know, a little more twitchy on the steering, but that's okay. Rear toe, same thing. Positive, negative, but on the rear, drifting purposes, drag racing purposes, things like that, you're gonna take it over to the positive a little bit. A little bit of positive toe, inward toe, pushes the car forward. The car naturally wants to go forward. I run mine at 0.3. In terms of toe, again, if it wasn't obvious showing you the visuals, I'm just trying to make this dumbed down for everyone. It's like looking down at your feet and pointing them in or out. Okay, toe out, your feet would look like this. Toe in, your feet would look like this. Okay. On the camber, negative camber is going to lean the wheel in at the top. Positive camber is going to take the wheel out at the top. The way camber works in drift scenarios, on your front, you're going to want some negative camber for sure. Definitely not just solid zero and not positive. When you're at 0 or leaned in just a bit, -2, the tire is flat on the ground, right? So the flatter the surface, the more traction that it has. And when the camber, if the tires were straight up and down at 0 and you got on throttle with a soft suspension, the front end is going to lift, and when it lifts, it's going to take the control arms and push them down, which means that the tires are naturally going to go to a positive camber situation. And when you go positive camber on the front and you're running on the edges of those tires, it has no real grip out there except for the edge of the tires. It's going to wear out the edge of the tires in a real life scenario, but it has less grip that way. And so you're gonna, on the front, you're gonna want your negative camber. That way when you're on throttle, it comes up in the front a little bit and it's starting to flatten the tire out and you got more contact surface. As well as when you throw the car into a corner, your outside tire is going to stand up a whole lot more naturally. When all the weight comes over in the corner, it's stand up the outside tire, going to give you the best grip. So your preference is going to be a negative on the front, but the exact opposite is true for the rear. Rear, you're going to want a bit positive. I start between 0.2 and 0.3. This one we're going to start at 0.2 and we're going to start at, since this is a comp build, I'm going to start at -10-ish, okay? Between -10 and -14, if available, is where you really want to be on these comp tunes, that I do. You know, front, on the rear, anywhere between 0 and 0.3, 0.4, kind of play around with it, see what works best for you. Some cars I've got as high as 5 on the rear positive. Just depends on how squishy the suspension is and how much travel there is when I get on throttle, off throttle. Essentially, the reverse of the front is what's happening in the rear. Now we start with some positive camber, so we are out a little bit. And when you get on the gas and that front end lifts and those tires change, same thing with the rear. When you get on the gas and it squats in the back, it will actually take those tires and straighten them straight up and down, and or go past that point and roll them into a little bit of negative. But the goal is to get them adjusted where when you're on throttle and you're moving forward and you're pushing hard, the tire becomes as flat a surface as possible for the most forward grip and momentum possible. You lean the car over and it unweights part of it, then your camber kind of changes. So there's a fine line in what's too much and what's not enough, because if you've got too much, again, you're on the outer edges. Too little, you're on the inner edges, and when it squats, you're even more on the inner edges and the tires want to lay down. Doesn't help you. Next thing we're going to talk about is our roll bars. I very rarely use roll bars on competition builds. I do use them on street builds. I do stiffen them up, make them a little more glidey and slidey and stuff like that. But for the car getting back to grip when I want it back to grip, by getting off throttle or releasing throttle a little bit, anti-roll bars, I turn them all the way down. You turn them all the way up, your car is stiff. The body roll is not there. That roll bar goes from one side of the bottom of the car to the other, and it is a solid bar, and the stiffer that bar is, the less the suspension can move independently. Okay, so if you take the roll bars all the way out, then the suspension's doing what it wants to, all four corners, but it does have what's called body roll. The whole car does this, and want it to do that in drifting. Want to throw the car into a corner, let it lean its weight to the outside of that corner, and start to pull itself around. I typically never have a roll bar. I used to be 44 and 24 on my street stuff. Less in the rear because you want the rear end to grip up a little bit, front end can stay a little stiffer. But at this point on comp builds, for the most part, I hardly ever have anything in the rear, and it's usually between 19, 20-ish to 0 here. We're gonna do this one with no roll bars, so we'll just get that out of the way. Got our toe set, our camber set, got our roll bars set, and then we're gonna get into our caster. Caster, the new options have given everything 15 on the caster. Basically, see what it's doing there. It's leaning the tires while they're turned or straightening them up. Okay, your caster, essentially, I run 10 on most everything. Part of what caster is going to do is when you're moving at a high speed and you take a corner, okay, does the wheel stay cornered or does it start to come back? It's how fast that front end comes back at speed is what that's going to control. If you're going down the highway at 70 miles an hour and you grab the wheel and you started to turn left and you started to switch lanes a little bit and you let go of it, would it continue laying over and just go in, or would it start to come back to straight and straighten out? That's caster control. I run 10. On the steering angle, I always run maximum steering angle. That just how far you can turn. Super simple. How far does your wheel turn? You always want it to turn as far as possible. On Ackerman is a very touchy subject for most people. My builds, you can run whatever Ackerman you want. Okay, this is seriously what this is going to do is keep you from spinning out. It's a non-spin out feature. How it really works though is when you're turned at 100% open Ackerman, that means that wheel and this wheel are turned the exact same distance. Okay, when you are not at 100, got one wheel that's turned all the way and one wheel that's kicked out. That one all the way. So basically, with a lower Ackerman, this wheel would turn all the way in, right, on this side, This wheel is not turning all the way in like it should, and 100, they're both turned equal. So when you've got lower Ackerman, the outside wheel of the turn, instead of both of them going like this and staying flat, turning right. So this wheel is going to stay out this way a little bit. This wheel is rotating freely. This wheel is, sorry, the inside, yeah, it's rotating freely. The other one actually is not turned out as far as the first one, and so it drags down the street. It will keep you from spinning because it's basically dragging there so that it doesn't rotate on around, but it also will slow you down. It's scrubbing off speed. So you want to get as high a Ackerman as possible. It makes the car snap around faster, transition faster, cleaner. It doesn't drag your tires down the street. It doesn't slow you down. If you're having trouble keeping up with somebody and it's in corners that they're losing you, stuff like that, you might want to learn how to play with a higher Ackerman. I start mine anywhere from 75 to 85. Some people play on open Ackerman. I'm not quite there because of the competition stuff. I need to be a little more consistent and not spin out. But if you go way down here, it's going to be almost impossible to spin the car out. So I'm going to start this one at 80% Ackerman. Alright, so we've got our 62 degrees, 10 degrees caster, 60 or 80% Ackerman, no roll bars, negative 10 in the front camber. Rear camber is going to be 0.25, front toe negative 0.20, rear toe positive 0.30. Now we're going to take a trip back over here and I'm going to show you what we do with these springs. Every car, every setup that I do, okay? Only what changes these numbers is the fact that the numbers are different for every car, and the fact that this right here determines what these are gonna be. So we're gonna set all of these. Right now they're weird, they're all 40,000, so a little goofy, but basically we're going to take 40. For me, it was plus 10, if you remember, so that makes it 50. So we're looking to go 50% on all of these numbers. And again, numbers going to be weird on some of these cars, but just go with it. Try it. So 50%, basically you'd be taking 40,000 times 50%. Okay, on a calculator, however you need to do that. On this one, it's going to be easy because all these numbers are 40,000. So 50% of 40,000 is 20,000. I'm going to set all these at 20,000. Not all cars are like this. They do have different numbers. Okay, so this is just an example. You can also do, they won't all be the same like this when you do like a 60-40 or a 70-40, you know. Try not to go over 70 over here. But like I said, up to 100 is good, but try not to go over that. So on here, we've got our toe, we've got our springs, we've got everything is done here. So at this point, you're gonna have to make a couple of adjustments because that doesn't look right. Not gonna work. On your front spring length, you're gonna want to go up a little bit. Go start at 21. Rear will fit where it's at. Now we're gonna hop over to the wheels. We're gonna go to our front wheel track and adjust it where it makes sense. All right, here. rear. Got 9 and -3. That is riding just slightly high. I'm gonna go back over here. I'm gonna drop that down to 20. Alright, so we got room for the tires to travel and go up under the fenders without poking through the fenders. Good here, we're good there. Wheels, we've got tires, and our rims are set up the way that they're supposed to be. I like to start with a front tire pressure of anywhere from 125 to 135. On this one, we're going to go smack in the middle. We're going to go 130 on the rear pressure. Usually anywhere between 80 and 100. Okay, for my comp tune. So on this one, we're going to start it at 9. Now let's go 80. 90. Let's do 90. Just a guess. I haven't tuned this far yet. So we got 135 kPa or 130 kPa and 90 kPa. You've got your front wheel adhesion. They're at 100 for this build. Set wherever you want. I do believe that most of us are going to make the push to 110s, even though I hate that and I don't want to do it because of the new physics. It's going to be, I think, necessary for competitive play. Front tire profile 30% for BDS spec. But if, or for PDL, VDS, I mean, most of you know VDS, that's why I'm saying that, but we do have a new league, PDL, Professional Drift League. We will be getting that kicked off soon. It's going to be a lot of fun times, a lot of different tracks that have not been used yet, as I am implementing them into CarX with the mods. So look out for that. Shameless plug. On the engine, for this one, I'm gonna max it all the way out and just see where it goes. 1160. Okay. You could run it this way, but you don't necessarily need 1116 and 775. I would actually go with a 1.0 on the turbo and put it at 957 and 672. So the way, I mean, obviously you guys know, I think, how most of this works, but I will go through it because I don't want to skimp out. So engine tune-up is just that. It's just a tune-up, power adder. All that's going to do for you. You can make it less, more. On the torque, you're setting your max torque at, how my torque is not changing. Okay, max torque, it's telling you that your maximum torque, your 672 foot-pounds of torque, is going to be maxed out here, and then it's going to, if you look, it maxes out right at just before 5,000, and then it keels off in torque. So the higher that RPM goes, your limiter, more power you're gaining, but torque you're losing. Okay, and horsepower is how fast you hit the wall. Torque is how far you take the wall with you. Okay, so in drifting, you're gonna want torque. You definitely need some good torque to get the car spinning and get it sideways and stuff like that. But you gotta take into consideration when you let off the throttle and get back on the throttle, what track you're on, things like that are going to differentiate where you set this maximum torque value, because you're getting off throttle, and once you get off throttle, you're finding that it hesitates, or it takes a minute to come back into boost, probably because you've got your max torque turned all the way up and you're dropping down here somewhere. So if your max torque's here, and when you shift, you're dropping down here in RPM, got to build back up to that maximum torque area. You want this to be set somewhere for the track that you're using and the corners that you're hitting, you know, to be able to get you out of that corner better with that torque, get it spinning, get it going again. For purposes of the video, I'm going to max it out because we're just going to be hitting the test track and it's going to be pretty much wide open anyways. But rev limiter, again, and you can lower power, you can lower how high it revs, it will cut off at an earlier rev limit. I usually run my rev limiter all the way out because I have good throttle control, and why not? You know, turbocharger, yes or no, that's self-explanatory. Turbo air pressure is how much boost you're getting. Okay, so for our terms, you know, how many psi boost are you running? In here it's ATM, so gives you more power or less power depending on how much boost you run. This one, like I said, we're going to run 1 point. Transmission, sequential, and it just turns on the dog box transmission that they've recently added. We'll leave it on yes. Some of them have really annoying sounds, squeal like crazy, and some of them sound really, really good. Your diff locking ratio. On the diff lock, those of you that don't understand the diff lock, a full locked diff is at 100. That means that it is basically welded together. Both rear wheels spin the exact same rate at the exact same time. There is no getting around it. It is locked. They cannot spin any other way. They have to spin at the exact same time. Those of you that have been around full lock diffs or drag race cars know that a car with a full lock diff cannot turn corners slowly properly, because you got one tire that's trying to spin the same rate as the inside tire. Okay? And if an inside and outside are trying to spin at the exact same rate and you're turning a corner, it doesn't work. One tire will always bark and squeal and chirp and pop and try to, it gets in a bind. So you do want, in real world settings, okay, 100% diff lock is not necessarily good for drifting. Or what anybody else tells you, it's not necessarily good for drifting. You want a little bit of free play there where the tires can kind of spin at just a little bit of different rates, especially when you're turning and leaning and getting all the weight off of one tire onto one tire. So instead of 100, and you can run 100, it just makes it more slick and it makes it weird at lower speeds. I recommend anywhere from 0.65, 0.85 on your diff lock. For this one, we're going to go down to 0.65. Okay, this is a completely non-locked diff that is limited slip. Means if the car is turning and it's leaning on the one outside tire and it's putting all of its weight down on that tire, it's going to allow the other tire to spin freely. Okay, so up here, 0.65. Final drive is the most important part of your transmission. It controls the overall scheme of things. You could have every one of these set at one number, right? Like we could go 3, go like step them down, you know, because this way is going to tighten them up. This way is going to make them longer. So if you like drifting in first, second, third, you might want a lower final drive. And if you get up here, you're going to be going through gears faster. Bam, 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 because the final drive, the gears are tighter. That's how that works. But this controls all of these. So if you have a gear set that you like, that works for you, you can adjust the final drive for just the track or for just the new car around the same horsepower and torque. A lot of you might have noticed in my videos I use a lot of the same gear sets for every tune because they work well for that horsepower and torque. On this one, I'm going to put one of my favorite ones on. So that would be 5. First gear, same on this one, strangely. So then we go 8, 5, okay. So you can see they kind of take a step down, right? So from first gear, second, it's a pretty big jump, but the way these numbers are set up, You're not even going to use first gear. Probably not even going to use second gear. 230 and 180, and you can see all of these are slight gaps all the way down till 6th gear. So we're headed towards the longer side. We're headed towards the left so that these gears get longer. If I took gear 1 and then I took gear 2 and made it, this wouldn't work. Absolutely would not work. You'd have no second gear. Bang off the limiter, does nothing. Again, if you had this set up this way, once I get out into the game, I will show you a little bit of differences, okay? That's all I'm going to talk about on the transmission. Super easy. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Your final drive, if you have all your gears set the way you want, running out of gear too fast, or it's just just banging off the limiter, take that final drive and drag it out here and make them a little longer. Make them a little longer, make them a little longer. Back in, you go this way. If it's too boggy, if there's not enough power to pull the car around, take it this way. Bring your whole gear set this way. I try not to go over 4.5 ever. Some people run as high as 5. Again, for this one, we're going to run 3.85. Get into the brakes. Brakes are a personal preference. I'm going to give you my personal preference. You guys can run whatever you want to run. Completely personal preference. I'll tell you why I run what I run, and I'll also let you know that they have changed the brake torque values tremendously. 10,000 on there. Not a thing before. So on this one, because of the car's weight, I typically run between 3,600 and 4,200 brake torque. I know that's a high value, but keep in mind I turn ABS on for a reason. My brake bias is always very high for a reason. On my street tunes, I run them around 60 to 70. On my comp tunes, though, I run them around 94 to 97. We're going to put this one at 95 with a brake torque value of 1450. I'm going to run it about 3,900-ish. 3937, 3899. 3899 will work. It's close to 3900 as I'm going to get without getting technical. The reason I do that is because with this set up this way, I have plenty of brake torque to slow the car down, and almost all of it is to the front tires. And so when I'm coming around a zone and I'm trying to get to an outside clip and I'm just too shallow or whatever, or I'm chasing somebody and I'm not quite on them and I want to get there, I can actually wide open throttle it and then hit the brakes and feather in on the brakes lightly. And when I'm pulling in on the brakes, it's locking up the fronts, not completely because of ABS, still free rolling, but these back wheels are still moving at almost 100% speed. And so what that does is it kicks the car out more and it just lets you go sideways and stay sideways, and it will pull you to the outside. So if you're too tight on something, you're about to hit a wall because you're coming in too tight and you're not going to clip past the edge of that corner before you actually run into the wall, this will help you. It will pull you back out. If you've got an outside clip you're going to miss because you're in the middle of the lane, it will pull you back out to it. It's just the way that you control the car. You guys can set up the brakes how you want. Your brake torque is how much pressure is applied when you push the brake. If you put it at 10,000, it's gonna just lock everything. It's gonna stop you hard. Lock up the brakes. If you have it at 50-50, you're gonna get a front and rear brake bias. If you have 95, you're gonna get, this is 95% to the front. That means there's only 5% to rear. Now launch control, always no. I don't ever use launch control. We're gonna hop in here real quick. We're gonna take a test drive and see how this car works. I can use NVA and change a couple things if need be. controller was not plugged in, it was plugged into the... Okay. As you can see, we now have a car that drifts with I made this car really quiet. It used to be overly loud. That open Ackerman that I'm running kept that tire from leaving black marks down the street. When I use those brakes, if I want out there on that outside, see that? Tucked myself all the way over to that wall. Coming in too tight. Kind of how that works. The brakes will, you know, that was a bad example, but it does pull you outside, or when you use the brakes this way, you have the ability to do this. Okay. So, that will work out well. I will make a change and just to show you. If you were to take your brake balance and put it at 50%. Yeah, quickly that slows the car down and it doesn't work as well. Okay, if you take the brakes and you take them all the way down to 0 brake balance, now it's all rear. Yeah, it just straightens me out. You can't drift like that. Locking up the rears. Okay. This way. Not letting me do a burnout, right? Okay. I was holding full brake. Go this way. Set it back to that 95% we had before. Now the rear wheels can spin free while the fronts do not. What your brake bias is doing for you. So now that we have a car that works, you guys have an idea of what you can do to all of your cars to make changes. And hopefully this video helped everybody. I am going to end on that note. Finish race. As you see, we'll go through it one more time here. Your spring lengths, 20 and 17. Spring stiffness is at 40. That's how high the car is up and down. Front damper fast bump, front damper fast rebound. We know what those do. They control how much travel and how fast they have over fast bump scenarios coming at you chattery. These control how fast the shot goes down and back to full potential on the regular bumps and corners. For toe in, toe out, controls the way that the tires point in and out. This is going to be more twitchy, less twitchy. Or in the rear, it's going to be more straightforward power. Camber, leaning in, leaning out. Anti-roll bar, car, rolling. Your Ackerman, your caster, and your max steering angle. Wheels, tires, those are self-explanatory. I didn't go over this one thing. If you guys are not building comp tunes, okay, and you can run whatever tires you want. The fatter the tire you have, okay, you're gonna want to up the pressure a little bit, but the fatter the tire you have, the faster the car is going to go because there's more surface area on the ground, more traction on the ground. Skinnier, the more it's just going to spin, especially if it's a heavy car with a really skinny tire. The heavier the car, the wider the tire. It just makes sense. That's just how that works. And then we went through all that. Transmission, we went through all that. And brakes, we went through that. So One last thing, if you guys do not know how to check your weight, for those of you that do not have Dyno, you're going to go in your garage, going to go to the mods section, and your weight is right here, and the weight changes depending on what you're on. So if you're trying to tune a car for VDS spec, don't look at this and think, oh, I can use 325s because it's 1500, because you're going to put this ultimate on when you run it and it's going to be 1450. So make sure you pay attention to your weight there. Those of you that do have Kino mod, you can also check your weight here, and it will also tell you if I dropped a VR38 into this thing, we would be up over 1503, and over 1500 means that I could run 325 on 20s. Saying there's an option. Got engine swaps, it changes your weight as well, which changes your tires and makes it more compatible. So there's that. We will stock engine back. When you do have the engine swaps, put the engine swaps in. Mine's already set here, luckily, but make sure that you set your final drive for the swapped engine to what your final drive is in your transmission settings. Otherwise, it's going to run all wonky. And you can control your max torque limit out here as well in, you know, something to think about. Alright guys, that is going to do it for your How to Tune Like a Pro tutorial. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. If you like this video, if it helps you in any way with your cars, please like, subscribe, smash the follow buttons, and make sure you hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss any of my upcoming tunes, as I am going to continue to release all my tunes on a daily basis for 90s, 100s, looks like 110s now. Might even throw some 120s in there, because who knows where this crazy game is going to go before we get CarX Street. I keep making changes pretty much monthly. There's a different change and all the cars get jacked up, so I do feel like this is pretty good information to keep you guys able to fix your cars when you get on the game and all of a sudden your car that once looked, you know, looked normal and handled normal, they've fixed class 4 and 5. So when you get on and all of a sudden your car looks like this, that's not going to work. I've got to fix that because of their stupid updates. So knowing this stuff is going to help me get that done rather quickly. If you have cars that look like this, definitely check your garage in class 4 and 5. They've made changes. They're not going to work. They look and drive like total shit. So with that, I'm going to end it. Again, make sure you do all the things they tell you to do on YouTube, please, and thank you. I am out.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face, tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.